How's everybody doing? We are back with the illustrious Spidey. Rob couldn't make it. Alita wants some sleep. And we have a special guest. I heard about Suzi when I covered the Corey Feldman case with Spidey. And we were kind of surprised that we got a lot of, shall we say, pushback. And we were shocked because we actually were doing that stream sort of like a week off. Like, we're tired of this Manson stuff and a lot of SA, DV, some really, bad things. And I'm like, well, Corey Feldman is making accusations against Marilyn Manson. What? What is going on here? And then it made me discover the Today Show video. So we had to watch the Today Show video. Everyone should have to watch the Today Show video. If anything, I don't know if you call it an earworm or an eye worm, but you definitely need to check out the Today Show video. Your life will never be the same. And we were just kind of, we were laughing. Okay. It is funny. Sorry. Spidey's a performer. He's up on stage all the time. You gotta, if you put yourself out there, it was almost like a perfect trolling. But we got a ton of flack. Now, before I covered it, I had looked up Corey and I found, oh boy, there's a lot of stuff here about Corey Feldman. But I don't want to go into all that. I just want to have fun today. We're just going to do this video and we're just going to have fun and laugh, which we did. Then everybody talked about how I was bullying poor Corey Feldman. And Spidey was bullying poor Corey Feldman. Spidey, they were so disappointed in you.
Spidey the bully.
We thought you were the nicest guy, Spidey, and you're bullying poor Corey. Well, okay. That's fine. Well, I started to hear from different people, and I thought, well, if I'm going to be accused of criticizing, potentially, Corey Feldman's actions, then, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's talk to someone who has, shall we say, a lot of experience with Corey Feldman. And unfortunately, we discussed this before. Corey Feldman, as a child, I think had a really rough time. I think he very likely was abused in very severe ways. And I absolutely cry for that child. But as I've said in a previous show, at what point do we give people agency for their own actions? Corey Feldman, I think, is slightly older than me. I was born in 1970. Corey Feldman is 50 years old. So I think we can treat him as an adult finally.
Well, and like I've always said, many people, unfortunately, are victims of CSA. And I absolutely believe that he was abused. Also, I've never said otherwise. But that doesn't give you a pass in life. That doesn't give you the okay to then become allegedly an abuser himself and amongst other things. You don't just get a pass in life because you went through something like that as a child. In my opinion.
Okay. No, and by the way, we're going to place this out there right now. There's a big fat allegedly under everything we say. Absolutely. Everything here is our opinion. Suzi is speaking of her own personal experiences, which she can speak to. I am providing a platform and I'm listening, and I make statements, but this is observations, but they're not certainties because I don't know Corey. Never met him. Never was in the same zip code even, probably. Maybe I was. I don't know. I wouldn't know if I was, though. Don't know the guy. And I don't. Spidey, do you know Corey Feldman?
Nope.
I think we had to tell you who he was, didn't we?
I needed a refresher.
Okay.
Hey, when I first met him and saw him, I didn't realize who he was. So
yeah. Eric, I do also want to clarify the fact that we didn't, in our initial video, criticize a person or a character. We criticized the performance, a specific piece of content. And I think there's a vast difference. And for me, I've always been able to draw that line because I'm a mentalist. I'm friends with some of the biggest magicians in the world. And a lot of them make really silly content on social media just to get those views up. Those short format, those magicians you see on Facebook who they'll go up to a homeless person, but it's obviously not a homeless person. It's staged, and they make it seem like they make money appear, and then click like and subscribe, and they drag it out for 3 minutes. I criticize the content all the time. It doesn't mean I criticize the person. I have huge respect for the businessman, the marketing genius behind that. So I can look at Corey Feldman's performance and go, I can see how there's a marketing play behind this, a way to get people to talk about it. And I can even look at that performance and criticize how bad the entrance was without speaking a lick to the person, to the character. That's why Suzi's here.
True. And by the way, I can speak to, a good number of my performances on YouTube and do the same thing. So I'm not saying that I'm a performative genius or anything like that. But I would say most of them are better than that one. That one was pretty bad. I'm sorry.
Well, and he even went back for a second performance because that first one went viral for being so bad. He went back and now he brags about that performance, being like, "Oh, it got over 1 million views. My thing. It was." So he actually brags about that it was so good it got bad press. So.
Which,
so bad.
I mean, if you got to handle it one way or another, but you know what, Spidey, I know you're dying for it. I know you're dying for it. So
are we going to watch it again?
No, we're going to see how he's doing now. I think this performance that I have queued up here was within the past month or so.
This
is a very recent performance, and it doesn't exactly look like a stadium.
It's a venue that I guess holds usually 600 and something people, and they had like 120.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I could get 120 people to come see me live, so I'm not going to criticize. But I will say it's not exactly a stadium or a theater. Let's just see how it's going. It's actually better. I'm not in love with it, but it is better than what we saw before.
Right.
One of the comments on that live was, "There's a lot of social distancing here tonight, not because of COVID, but because there's no effing room."
Okay, look, I didn't say that I would write home about it. I'm saying this is better than the Today Show performance, okay? He's at least grounded.
Yeah,
at least looks like an open micer. I mean, come on.
He's not floating about like a majestic specter of the night.
Right.
What? His style's different, though. I feel like his last performance on the Today Show that we saw was a little more pop. This is a little more niche.
Yes, this is Cry Little Sister, literally.
Yeah.
So this would be goth, or rock, whatever. But I got to get people to move. So let's just a little bit more. All right, so that's early in the performance. I can't do too much at a time here, guys. I'd say it's because of copyright laws, but it's also due to personal tolerance levels. Okay. Oh, is this Corey on guitar?
Ooh.
So never be afraid.
No, I saw him. That can't be him.
This is good. Who is that?
That guy has a decent voice. Yeah, that's not Corey. That's not him.
I don't think it is.
Let me see. Is this him? There we go. There he is. Okay, so if he would have his guitarist sing the songs, the performance
I don't know
level
if
goes
it's
way up.
guitarist. Someone in the chat is saying, I don't know if they're talking about this performance, but it was Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, and Corey Hart. Is that possible?
No. Corey Haim has
Corey
passed
Haim's
away in
deceased.
2009.
Sorry. Well, sorry. Corey Haim wouldn't make sense. So what are they talking about? It was Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, and Corey Hart. What are
Maybe
they just
someone in the movie or the 40s and the
Yeah, wouldn't make
80s.
sense.
Yeah, they did do a lot of work together. They were famous as the two Coreys, and
Well,
that's
Right,
where
well,
some
how
of
does
this
Corey
is
Hart
good.
play into this?
Maybe they did all three one time, but
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense.
I don't.
didn't connect the dots that it wouldn't make, because you said this was recent. What we're looking at here, obviously. So,
Yes, and
Okay.
and plead life. Please, you shouldn't say that to Corey Feldman. He'd be very upset considering what he thinks of Marilyn Manson. Manson did it much better. Well, yep, and yeah,
Well,
Corey
and
Hart
I
is
just-
a famous Kenyan wrestler.
I want to
yeah,
touch on
Corey Hart is awesome. He's the one who sings "I Wear My Sunglasses at Night." I've done a few shows with him. Nice guy, great performer. That guy on the guitar was really good, and it's funny how like we just kind of, like we couldn't see it, and we're like, "Oh, that's not bad," and then it's not even him. Like so it's not like that we're even bullying. I was ready to say that he was good if that was him, but it wasn't him.
Okay, I'm sorry. And Susie, we jumped on you, haven't we?
No, I was just going to go back on when you said Corey Feldman and Corey Haim worked a lot in the 80s. And I thought that's what somebody was talking about in the chat too, but I didn't see the whole conversation. And that's why a lot of people believe that Corey Haim and Corey Feldman were like these best friends and these best buddies. And Corey Feldman still plays on that. But in reality, it was like a business decision, and for business reasons that they presented themselves as the two Coreys, and because it brought them better business. So that was something I learned when I got involved in this. I wasn't a fan of Corey Feldman or Corey Haim. I was raised in the suburbs of Illinois, so like the whole celebrity thing wasn't something that was big on me. So but I did grow up on their movies. Of course, Stand By Me used to be one of my favorite movies. He's ruined that for me now, though. But they actually weren't as close as they were, and they did a reality show.
The two Coreys, right?
Right, and if you watch that, and actually a couple of people in our community, Bobby Wolf did an excellent video on that where he broke down that whole reality show and showed how Corey Feldman and his wife like treated Haim horribly, and you really see it in that. So unfortunately, a lot of people think they were a lot closer than they actually were.
I'm sorry to hear that. So let's, I'm bearing the lead. Had to get a little bit of lightness out. So Susie,
yes,
how did you first get introduced, meet, or come across Corey Feldman?
Okay, it was 2000. I was living in Illinois, and I was in the suburbs of Chicago, and I started dating this guy, and he owns a bunch of restaurants and clubs in downtown Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. He's got a huge company. And me and my girlfriends were at one of his clubs one evening with my boyfriend at the time. His name's Mark. And we were sitting at a table, and one of his bouncers walked up with Corey and this beautiful girl, and they were talking to Mark, and Mark's like, okay, and like, we're in a booth. So he's asking us all to scoot over. And I see my two girlfriends are like, oh, and I'm like, what? And they're like, that's Corey Feldman. And I go, who's that? And they're like, Corey Feldman. And Mark was getting ready to open up this another club, and a White Star it was called. And I go, oh, is he going to be working at White Star? They're like, no, he was in the movie, da da da. And then I was like, oh, and it clicked. So, they sat down at our table, and, we were at a club. I was 21, young. And then next thing we know, Corey wanted to have an after hours party back at his hotel. So, he told Mark. So Mark got a bunch of alcohol and a bunch of people, and we went back to his suite at his hotel right outside of O'Hare Airport. And, that was something that it's R-rated that he did that night that was extremely inappropriate, and it just disgusted my friends and I. And there was obviously alcohol and party favors all involved in that night. And, I saw him was partaking in certain stuff. Like I said, this was 20 years ago. And, that was the end of it, and we were like, God, man, he's kind of a douchebag, because what we saw, when he walked out of a room where he was with this girl. And so that was that. Well, then the next
Hold on a second. Spidey, did you, while we were on?
Yeah, Suzi, sorry. So there was stuff happening at that hotel that made you feel like scared or insecure, or?
Well, no, there was, okay. I mean, I'll try to PG it. So there was like a locked bedroom where he went up there with his girl. And so like, we're all downstairs listening to music, party, and, and he walked out of the room and he was wiping his mouth, licking his lips, and just made an inappropriate thing that her blah, blah, blah was, this, that, and the, and we were just like,
okay. Locker, like frat boy or locker room.
Yeah,
talk,
kind of just like a douchebag kind of thing to do. And so we're like, whatever. So then the second time, then like a couple weeks later, Mark tells me that he's flying Feldman in and getting him a hotel room because he's opening this new club, White Star, and he's having like a VIP night and he wants him there. And I'm like, really? Like the guy's, is he even popular now? Like you're going to pay for all that? And the guy I was dating, he was like 10 years older than me. And like his bucket list was to go to the Playboy Mansion. And I was dating a playmate at the time. So he's like, well, this is my in, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever, So,
Hold on a second. I'm going to jump in for a second to interject because in his interview with Steve-O, Corey Feldman spent a good chunk of time talking about his relationship with the Playboy Mansion and that apparently he was a regular there.
Yes.
And was pretty coarse, I would say, in his verbiage about, the women and different things. It was noticeable because this was religious Corey, I believe, at the time. And he was, religious guy, but then kind of talking about shagging this and that and doing whatever.
His first wife,
and
Suzi Feldman, was a playmate.
Okay, well then that would probably help him have an entree into there. But I just wanted to get that out there, and I'm sorry to interrupt. Want to get the stories in context.
Suzi, did your boyfriend? The fact that your boyfriend wanted to go to the mansion? Was there an argument about that? Did it drive?
No. Like we weren't in like a serious relationship. Like we were kind of dating, seeing each other. I mean, he was a club owner. Like I was young, but I wasn't stupid, So, so then he tells me, he's gonna fly him out. I'm like, okay, great. I lived like an hour in the suburbs of the city, so his club was downtown. So he's like, get all your friends, come to the city. I'll get us hotel rooms and blah, blah, blah. And me and my friends like went to his clubs every weekend. It wasn't a lot that Mark would go out with us there. So I was really excited and I got all my friends and, we head down to the city and we're at the club and we're having a good time. And all of a sudden Feldman comes in and, partakes in the party favors that were going on in the VIP room and, talks to a few girls, and like within 30-40 minutes he's now telling Mark he wants to go back to the hotel room so he can have their parties that they do in the bedroom as a group thing because that's what Feldman liked. And so Mark's like, well, this was before Ubers and everything, but he's like, I'm gonna take him back, he's got a lot of people, I got the Suburban. And I'm like, you paid for him to come out here to be here at your club. Like he hasn't even been here an hour. Just send him in a cab or whatever if he wants to leave. But that's like rude. And so I was annoyed. And he's like, well, no, I got to drive him. So, we're in the VIP room. I'm sitting in a chair. Mark's like kneeling in front of me, talking to me. And Corey right away, like, come on, let's go. And Mark's like, just give me a couple minutes. I'll be there. And I'm pissy. And so like literally 2 minutes later, Feldman again, Mark. And Feldman's like, be there in a second. Well, he did it a third time, and then I got annoyed, and I'm almost 5'10". I was wearing heels. Feldman, I think, is like 5'5" or 5'6". I stood up, and I was like, I yelled at him. I told him, I'm like, you were supposed to be here, and all you're worried about is going da-da-da-da-da-da. And, it's an intense thing, and Mark, got his bouncers, bring him outside. I'll be to the car, bring me a car. And so I was mad. And so, Mark left and took him, and he was calling my girlfriend's phone all night. And we were just had a good time. And he ended up coming to my house at like 6 a.m. and apologizing. He's like, I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do. The guy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whatever. I go, the guy's just a douche. Like, I just don't like him. Like, he's just a whatever.
Wait, who came to apologize? Mark?
Yeah. The next morning or whatever, like, as soon as it was like 6 a.m. We were just getting back home from the club. So, that was that. And I'm just like, the guy, my friends didn't like him. He just was, we saw the way he looked at women, talked to women, and there's the way he was, so just didn't like him. Well, not even like a week after that second experience, an article had come out in People magazine. It was one page, and it was about how the actor Corey Feldman has been sober and clean from drugs.
I was
for 10
going to
years.
ask you.
Yeah. So my friends and I are reading this. We're like, well, that's not true, And we're like, I'm like, this guy's just a fraud. Like, why would he lie about being sober when, he's not?
Okay, now really quickly, statute of limitations is out, I believe, for just about every state out there.
Yeah.
Are you saying definitively, yes, he was doing drugs in front of you? You saw him.
1,000,000%. I partaked.
And what was he doing?
It was ecstasy mainly, and then there was some cocaine.
Okay, and drinking as well, right?
He didn't drink. I didn't see him really drink alcohol.
Suzi, was the drugs? I'm guessing he didn't do publicly at the bar. He did it in the hotel room or in the confines of
the VIP room at the two clubs, because Mark, obviously, like, there was the VIP room, then there was like his private room. That's where he did it, at the club, and then back at the hotel room too.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. You actually saw him.
Yes.
Snort or do something. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's very relevant to be specific and ask. And again, okay. So then you found out and read article.
That article comes out, and we're just like, I'm like, I told you, Mark, this guy just is, he's bad news. He's a fraud. He's a liar. Well, then Mark was telling me like a few weeks after that his band was coming to Indiana and he was going to go see him. And me and my best friend still to this day, and she was with me those 2 times we first met him. We're like, well, we're going. And Mark's like, oh, no, I don't want you guys coming with me. You can't stand him. And we're like, no, we're going to go. And we're going to bring our People magazine. And, when we're hanging out afterwards, we're going to ask him to autograph it. And he's like, oh, gosh. So we ended up going to that event. And
Did you bring the magazine?
Yeah, we did, actually. And
that's a troll. Spidey, this is a good troll here.
Yeah, and so like after the show, we were helping him set up for his meet and greet and stuff. And we're like, hey, Corey. And he just did his freaky weirdo laugh that he does, the creepy laugh that he does. And, that was it. And like, there actually wasn't really any conflict with us and him that third time. Mark was actually surprised. He was like, asking my friend and I to like, oh, you guys go get some girls to come backstage and, hang out. And that's like, the guy cares about 2 things. And number 1 is definitely sex. And I'd say number 2 is drugs. That's like, was his 2 things. And so there really was.
It's not rock and roll, right? So we got that covered. Sorry.
Right. And this was, back in, like I said, 2000, 2001, and he didn't have like angels in his band at that time. It was just all guys. So there was no incident at all that time. Well, I ended up moving to Virginia. And so Mark and I, like cut ties, and I moved to Virginia, and I was there for like 3 months, and I came back to visit, and I went to see Mark, and he had told me that he had gone on a like Playboy cruise with Feldman, and he had pictures, and there were some interesting things in those pictures that I saw. I don't think I could say. I don't know like what your channel normally is and subscribers.
Well, you can describe it loosely, but there
was pictures of a female oral sex competition.
Okay. Yeah, you could say that. I mean,
where like two girls were and then there was like pictures of Corey and his girlfriend, which it actually might have been the lady he ended up marrying, Suzi, I don't remember, but they were like naked, like taking pictures on the balcony of their cruise, like entwined with each other or whatever. And Mark's like, yeah, he goes, well, I haven't heard from him since. He goes, he asked me to invest in his band, and he was asked me to help him out and loan him. It was like 30 something $1,000, between 30 and $40,000. And Mark's like, it was only supposed to be for a month. He's like, and I did it, and haven't heard from the guy since. And I'm like, oh, shocker, like I told you that guy was just bad news or whatever. And like that was the end of it. Then I went back to Virginia and I lived my life, and I never even like really thought about Corey Feldman or any of that. I did notice when the reality show came out with him and Haim, I watched a couple episodes of that, and like that was it. Like I didn't know anything about the guy. And then in October of 2017, I happened to see a video on Google where Corey Feldman is asking for $10 million to make a movie to expose the pedophiles in Hollywood. And that video like triggered me. I was like, wait a minute, why does this guy need $10 million to make a movie to name the pedophiles? And in this video, he's like saying how his life is in danger and the poor sympathy victim stuff. And and I go, you don't need $10 million. And he was saying in the video too, how these pedophiles are still in Hollywood currently hurting. And I'm like, if these people are hurting kids, you don't need $10 million to make a movie. Turn your phone on and start talking like you are in this. And it just really was triggering for me because I knew what a fraud and a scammer he was and a liar. And then, things that I've been through in my life as a child, I'm like, this is just ridiculous. And so I had just joined Twitter like 6 months before that for Big Brother. Like that was it. I was not big on social media in any way, shape, or form. And this was back when Twitter like only had 180 characters. And so I tweeted at Feldman and I said, hey, Feldman, why do you need $10 million to name pedophiles if kids are getting hurt? I know that you're a liar and a scammer. Remember me, Mark's ex-girlfriend? And it was like 4 or 5 tweets. Well, within minutes, he blocked me. And within minutes, I had some of his fans, which come to find out that's his Feld fan is what he calls them. They were what
are they called?
He calls them the Feld fam.
Feld fam. Okay. Okay, that's not as bad as I thought. Okay.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, your husband looks like this, and just, attacking me or whatever. And I'm like, and then I had a woman by the name of Shannon. She had replied to my tweet and was like, oh, so you met Feldman, like asking me about it. And so her and I started talking. And then I met some other people.
And who was Shannon to Corey?
I'm sorry?
And who was Shannon to Corey?
Shannon is just somebody that was friends with Judy Haim and Greg Harrison, which is Corey Haim's real best friend in his real life. She was friends with them. She like worked in the industry and stuff like that. And she just knew Corey Feldman was a bad guy. And so, there was other people on Twitter that were upset with him asking for the $10 million, to do this also. And so we kind of just all started talking and like started looking into different things regarding him. And, he was saying that in that video where he was asking for $10 million, he said on his tour, he was trying to cross the road after he said he was going to speak out against, the pedophiles. And this truck came barreling down the road and tried to run him over and kill him and all this stuff. So then we're like, that he had to cancel his tour and he's in the hiding. So we just start, researching more things. And Judy was speaking out at the time. She had gone on Dr. Oz and I think the Today Show or something, one of those shows, and, spoke out how she was like, because Corey Feldman was also saying in that first video that went viral, asking for the $10 million, that he was going to tell not only his story.
Oh, Frozen. I think we actually played some of that, Spidey.
I remember that.
In the follow-up.
Yeah, she was in the chat.
Yeah, so Judy went and did interviews and said, listen, if he wants to tell his story, great, have him tell his story. But he doesn't need to speak about my son. He's not here. My son, has said who his abuser was, because Feldman, swears on everything holy that Charlie Sheen, was the one who hurt Corey Haim.
Well, was one of them right now? Just to clarify, and we had a pause in there.
No.
From what I understand, Judy said that there was one abuser of Corey Haim, period.
Dominic Russia.
Right, who has passed on, so yes. Naming him isn't really anyway. But nobody else. And Corey Feldman is putting out that there was multiple abusers, from what I understand. He was going to be revealing them all, and one of whom was Charlie Sheen.
Well, yeah, and after Dominic passed, Feldman finally named Dominic, and I'll tell you why he didn't do that until he passed, because Corey Feldman was actually buddies with him. And the other person that Feldman says regarding Haim is Sheen, and then he has also said Marty Weiss. But all of Corey Haim's family and his real friends in life that he grew up with and was close to, they have all said the same thing. All of Haim's ex-fiancés, girlfriends have all said Haim was clear as day and said it was one person only, and that was Dominic.
Now, also, there was a confrontation, I believe. I don't know if it's an outtake, but it was some part of the two Corys between Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, where Corey Haim or Haim, I don't know. Is it
Haim?
Haim?
It's Haim.
It's Haim. Okay. Corey Haim was confronting him, saying, you knew who this person was, but you continue to hang out with him. Am I remembering that correctly? Love internet.
Corey Feldman introduced Haim to Dominic, which, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying it's Corey Feldman's fault or whatever, but and then Haim told him, what happened, and Feldman continued. He moved in with the guy, lived with the guy after Haim told him what he had done to him. Okay, and then on the movie set Busted. Oh, and just I wanted to add, in that scene you're talking about on the reality show, that was not scripted or planned out at all. Haim did that because he was so done with Feldman at that point. But so they're on the movie set Busted. Corey Feldman's a producer on it. Haim is supposed to be in the movie. Haim gets to the set one day, walks in with Judy, and there stands Feldman with Dominic. And Haim's like, whoa, like, what the heck's going on here? And Feldman starts laughing and says, oh, I thought you'd like it. So Haim got mad, and they got into a physical altercation. Haim threw him against the wall and yada, yada, and said, that's it. I'm out of here. I quit. And he walked off set. Feldman the next day went in the press saying how he had to fire Haim from the movie because of his drug usage.
And Judy was there at the time?
Yes, Judy was there, and there was other people that witnessed this too that I have spoken to that have, confirmed that story to me. It was a very big thing, and so he hired Dominic, and gave him a job even after that. And Corey never really mentioned Dominic. I guess he wrote that book. I've never read the book, and that's another thing. He said he was writing the book to name these pedophiles in Hollywood years before this whole movie stunt, and he ended up like having to give everybody code names because he said the publishers and the lawyers made him do it. It wasn't him, even though he promised to name the real names. And so I think he called Dominic something that you would never know who he was talking about. But when Dominic passed, then Feldman had no problem, saying his name and stuff like that. But I think Dominic had stuff on Feldman personally, in my opinion.
Spidey, I know you've done a lot of different therapies and stuff. Is that I don't want to I don't want to confess something, but if somebody is a known abuser and somebody's known abuse, sometimes there's some odd relationships that come out of that, or is that unheard of?
The one thing I've learned in all my time with this is nothing is unheard of. So it's very rare that I'll see something and be like, that can't happen, because we all deal with things in different ways, and deal with the emotions of it in different ways. So I never generalize, or I would never say this, that doesn't make any sense, because in this particular thing, anything makes sense. I've seen so many different. So yeah, I'm not comfortable saying no. That doesn't work.
Okay. Well, I'm not. I'm actually saying it sort of makes a weird sense, but
yeah,
but like there could have been grooming going on at some point, and
yeah,
I don't know for sure, and I don't know all of.
Well, there was also a Lifetime movie that came out in 2018, I believe it was, and Feldman was a producer on it, and it was The Tale of Two Coreys, I think is what it was called. Lifetime had contacted Judy to ask her if she wanted to be like a whatever producer on it, and she was like no, and like, what are you telling? And it was Feldman telling their story, so to speak. And in this movie, Feldman made himself look like an angel, like, oh, I was kind of abused, but nothing really too bad. But, and I, really wasn't into drugs. I was briefly, and then I quit when I was 19. And, portrayed Haim as this. Oh, and then, Feldman also in the movie made him, how his parents treated him horribly, which I believe they did, but he totally made himself look like a victim in certain ways, and like, not that bad, where he made Haim look like this drug addicted kid that was out of control, that was, raped between. So Feldman's thing is that Haim told him on the set of Lucas, which Corey Haim, I believe, was 13 years old on that movie, and Charlie Sheen was 19. Charlie Sheen was just taking off his career. Corey Feldman's claims, and he says this story plenty of times, that Haim told him that Charlie Sheen raped him with Crisco, a can of Crisco. Like,
don't get too detailed now. This is when you got to be really careful.
Between trailers. And, that was the first time he met Corey Haim. Feldman, told him that and said, if anything ever happens to me, promise me that you'll tell this story. Okay.
That's such a specific accusation.
I'm sorry?
That's such a specific accusation.
Yeah. So Feldman and Sheen have beef from a girlfriend that Feldman was dating and that Sheen stole from Feldman. Okay, so that, like, they've had that beef. I have issues with that story myself, because why would it be between two movie trailers outside on a movie set? From many people that I've talked to in the industry that were on that set and other movie sets, always said Judy was always with her son. Now, obviously, I know things happen. You can't be with them 24/7. But look at all of the things that have come out about Charlie Sheen over the years, right? We know what the guy likes. And as far as I know, and as far as anybody has been able to present me, there has never been any child CSA against Charlie Sheen, or any even like men.
No, he seems to prefer women,
right,
especially those in the industry, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that bad. I mean, like, women who are in adult movies.
Right.
He seems to have dated a lot and been with them. And yeah, I've never heard of Charlie not being around women, but that doesn't mean anything, because obviously,
what the hell do we know? Like, yeah, there's a pattern, but it doesn't, anyways.
Yeah. So, I mean, I personally don't believe the story. I don't know, like, why Feldman was the only one who supposedly was ever told this story by Corey. No, and like Corey Haim's gonna tell Feldman this the first time they're ever meeting, and so it's just never made sense to me personally. Judy swears up and down it absolutely didn't happen. I mean, like I said, Charlie Sheen was 19, his career was just taking off. At that time, the guy probably could have got, I don't know. I personally don't believe it at all. Neither does Judy or anybody that was in Haim's life on any personal matter. But,
I will say it hasn't stuck. I mean, he has been public about it. And Spidey,
right.
have you ever heard that Charlie Sheen did anything to younger people, whatever?
As far as I know, any behavior from him was towards women. That's what I've heard, but it's not something.
And drugs or weirdness, like tiger blood and strangeness.
Listen, I haven't done a deep dive into the case, but again, it doesn't mean anything because just because this is what we know doesn't mean there isn't a whole bunch of things we don't know.
Agreed, but I'm saying that it hasn't caught on, and this is right in the height of Me Too, where any rumor. And this has been shown too. Any rumor seemed to really get legs very, very quickly, because we're not talking about even this year or last year. We're talking about right as Harvey Weinstein was getting, outed, and it was like, we're done with this. We are done. And why? Again, if you have Louis C.K., who was kind of gross, disgusting, horrible, right? All that's out there. But this kind of thing. Why didn't it catch legs? I would think that one, especially
Charlie. So in 2017, when when Feldman was doing all this, saying the money and the Weinstein stuff was going on, the Inquirer did a story. You could probably Google it right now and find it, and it was saying that, and I can't remember if it was public knowledge that Dominic was the one who talked to them, or if it was figured out later. But Dominic is the one who told Enquirer that Sheen did this, and Enquirer wrote a thing about it in their magazine. Well, Charlie Sheen sued them.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they ended up settling out of court. But Dominic was absolutely behind that.
Wait. Dominic was the abuser, right?
Huh? Yes.
Is this Dominic the abuser?
Yes. Yep.
Oh God, this is gross.
So so that all was going on. He did that Lifetime movie, which was just horrible, and Judy actually ended up in the hospital the night that movie came out because of her heart. She has a bad heart as it is, and it just. Her. But as we're researching him and finding all this stuff out, and he's talking about this tour he was on and he had to cancel it. I had followed a couple of those women that he was on tour with on social media. And then I woke up one morning, I had talked to one of them briefly for a few days here and there. And then I woke up one morning and this woman, by her name's Mara Moon, she had sent me 35 DMs telling me of all the things that she went through living with Feldman and being on that tour with him. And it was absolutely disgusting, vile stuff, allegedly, Mara, she was sexually assaulted. She wasn't paid. She wasn't allowed to eat. She couldn't, her uniforms that he made them wear, those angels, she couldn't find her undergarments for it. And his wife, in my opinion, is just as bad as he is. Threw dirty, soiled stuff at her and told her she had to wear that. I mean, she was stranded. They had gotten, because right when he came out with that viral video, a couple weeks before, his tour bus was pulled over in Louisiana and they found drugs on the bus. And I can't remember if he was given a ticket or arrested, but I know a couple people was, because he had a wife, Courtney, and then he also had a live-in girlfriend, Darcy. Darcy was arrested at the time, and another one of the girls. So like she told me about that, and then like because she didn't get paid for months, a friend had to come get her, and it was like horrible stuff. And I'm like, I don't know how to deal with something like this. Like I wasn't even on YouTube at that time or anything, and so I let my friend Shannon know, and she got in touch with Greg, and we ended up like somebody helped her write a statement that was out there, and then she did an interview with Ed Opperman and told their story. Well, then Bobby Wolf started doing the YouTube videos.
Okay, yeah. Now, who is Bobby Wolf? Can we?
Okay, Bobby Wolf. He was just like a normal. He was just. We can talk about that because that's. So he was just one person who saw that video like the rest of us did and sat back and, saw some stuff for the months and then decided to film a YouTube video one day being like, like, why is this guy asking for 10 million to make a movie? And he researched some stuff and showed it, and the video took off. And he was really good with the way he explained things and stuff. And me and like all the people I knew, we were being extremely loud on Twitter, exposing everything that we were exposing. And so like we connected with him and, started like we would do research for his videos and, kind of just, became friends that did it that way. And his videos, took off and they got a lot of traction. Well, his name is Bobby Wolf, Wolfe, and that was the name of his YouTube channel. And Greg Harrison, which was Haim's best friend, one time jokingly, I think it was on a live stream or in the chat or something, Bobby was doing a live, and Greg was like, oh, Bobby, you should call, your subscribers and people that support you the Wolf Pack. It's like, oh, yeah, Bobby's like, yeah, the Wolf Pack, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of just like, said it a few times and, joked about it. Well, Feldman took that and ran with it. That, us housewives that are at home on social media, researching this stuff and looking into him and all this stuff, that we're a gang and the Wolf Pack is against him. And
you did name yourself a Wolf Pack technically, and somebody could lay the criticism that they're chasing me like wolves. No, I'm saying you kind of they did lay it out there, just to say.
The craziest time Eric was so like, and Bobby didn't know Feldman that well and stuff. He was in like the theater business and had heard something about Feldman years prior from somebody and always stuck in his head. So anyways, and I would tell like Bobby all the time, like Feldman, he exposes himself, like the guy just, he does silly stuff on social media and in interviews, and he doesn't do himself any favors. It's like Feldman is the one that helps us the most, right? And one morning I wake up, I'm in California, Bobby's in New York, and my phone had a million messages, and I'm like, what is going on? And I'm reading my messages and I'm seeing these articles that was sent to me, and it says the Wolf Pack attempted to kill Corey Feldman stabbed him, this, that, and the other. And I call Bobby. I'm like, what is going on? And he's like freaking out. He's like, I don't know. Like Feldman said, I guess Feldman got stabbed last night, and he's saying that the Wolf Pack did it. And he's like, and so I start laughing, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, he was fine. Like there was pictures of Feldman with like a freaking pinhole, in the hospital. And I'm laughing, and I'm like, Bobby, this is what I'm talking about. This is the silly stuff Feldman does that doesn't do him any favors. And like, he sounds ridiculous. And I had even said to Bobby and another friend at that time, I go, so does it say what he was stabbed with? He's like, no, it just says he was stabbed, I guess with a knife. And I go, Bobby, mark my words, it's going to end up coming back something about drugs, a syringe or something. I go, something happened. Like he had a bad thing happen with a drug deal or something, and Bobby's like, and I'm like, he's freaking. And he's like, well, it's my name, like Wolf. And I go, I know, Bobby, like, but I'm telling you, it's going to be okay. Like CNN was covering it. Like it was everywhere on the internet. And I'm not even kidding you. An hour later, Feldman tweets out, oh, I wasn't stabbed with the knife. It was a syringe. So he claimed that he was at an intersection. There was his lawyer said there was an incident, okay, and these guys got out of the car, and even though he had like a brand new BMW, and everybody knows as soon as you put your car in reverse, your door is locked, that these people, I forget how he worded it, like Superman or something, just was able to unlock the door and, took a syringe and, stabbed him in the stomach. And, this was when Feldman had been asking for money was getting like $300,000 he got over in donations from people when he was asking for the 10 million, but then he turned it in and he needed security 24/7 to protect him because he was naming these pedophiles. And he, it's like, oh, my security guard was with me, thank God. But, and then these people just took off. And so his lawyer came forward like that day or the next day and said it was a road rage incident. The police said there was no evidence that anything took place. Bobby ended up flying out here in Shannon and staying like a week at my house. And we did some research regarding that incident. And I went and talked to the gas stations there. And at that intersection, it's a very busy intersection in California. And I said, do you guys have cameras? Isn't this the intersection where Corey? And they're like, yeah. And the one guy told me, he goes, our police was upstairs going through our video surveillance for 3 days. They never found anything. The attack. So then, I guess the hospital said, well, if you were stabbed with a syringe, and I'm not even kidding you guys, it was like he had somebody took a pin or a needle and punctured his skin, and it was the size of a pimple. There's pictures on it on the internet, and they said, well, then you should take this medicine in case there was, I believe it was AIDS or something in that. And wouldn't you know, he passed on taking that medication because the medication was going to make him sick and this and that, but it would protect him from, and of course he didn't take that medication. So, and come to find out later, this is when he was struggling coming up with the 10 million, obviously. And then he said, I'm going to make this documentary. And he had a meeting that night with the producer, I don't remember his name, trying to get this guy to do the documentary for him. And he's telling him, like, my life's in danger, and this wolf pack, they're attacking me and they're destroying my life, and Judy sent them after me, and Sheen sent Judy, and like all his crazy conspiracy stuff, right? And the guy says, okay, well, I'm sorry you're going through all this, but I'm going to have to pass. Well, that night is when that stunt happened. And then the guy, he says it in the documentary, well, then I decided maybe I should do something about this. So just saying.
Okay. And very quickly, because we're probably going to move away from Bobby pretty soon. But what happened to Bobby? Because I see Bobby everywhere. Yeah. And then there's no Bobby. When I'm looking in the past, it's like,
it took off, and, he was extremely busy. And then, he got a lot of interviews with other females that were on that tour and worked with Corey that were allegedly sexually abused, and, viral videos. It really took off and he was doing good. But when that incident happened and there was just other stuff, and then people were attacking us, trolls and haters. And he had, Bobby started another show with the actor, Nathan Forrest Winters. They started doing a series on YouTube called Monster Hunters, where they were talking about, pedophiles in Hollywood and stuff. Nathan Winters was coming out with a documentary about what he went through and all this stuff. And Bobby just started getting attacked ruthlessly. And they were, looking into his family. They were calling him a pedo, nonstop, horrible things as far as the trolling. And, he just got to the point, he was really frustrated that all these women had spoken and they had gone to the police, and the police didn't seem like they were really doing anything. And he just got frustrated with it all and said, you know what? I'm out. He said, Suzi, if anyone's going to see any of this through, I truly believe it's going to be you. He's like, I'm just not cut out for this. I didn't expect this to happen. And he just got tired of it and frustrated with it all, and he just said,
I see.
I'm out.
Very quickly, the chat, it looks like we've thrown some names around and maybe there was too much in.
Too
a
much.
little curse of knowledge, if you will. But to catch up really quickly, Mark is your former boyfriend who was out of the picture years ago when you moved to Washington.
Right.
And you moved to Washington. You lived
Virginia.
a good chunk of your life. I'm sorry. Yeah,
It's
Virginia.
okay.
I was thinking Washington, D.C.
I
area.
know.
But,
I know.
Anyway, you moved to Virginia, and this is in what, early oddies?
It was 2001 when I moved to Virginia, early to January.
So 16 years go by. There was nothing to do with Corey, anything.
Nope.
Mark's out, everybody's out, and you moved to California.
Yeah, I was in California at this time.
And at that time, Corey was coming forth with a lot of information and
asking for the 10 million,
asking to fund a movie to expose people, and he needed $10 million to make it.
Yep.
And Bobby is another person, because at this time people were being critical of Corey for trying to raise money and not just reporting people and crimes of which he was aware.
Trying to profit.
And they were saying, why are you asking for $10 million? You should be talking to the police. You should be talking to a prosecutor. You know, why do we have to pay you to reveal if people are legitimately getting hurt?
Right.
And you were one of these people being critical. This other gentleman, and it's my fault, I threw the name Bobby out, but Bobby came out and became a YouTuber who, almost a single subject YouTuber. He was a YouTuber critical of Corey Feldman.
Yes.
And his last name was Wolf. And those people who supported him and helped him with his research, etc., got known as the Wolf Pack.
Yes.
Now, Corey knew at this time that there was a guy named Bobby Wolf who was being critical. It's kind of hard to miss. It's on YouTube. You look up your own name. I'm sure he heard. Probably has a Google search alert. You know, I mean, come on now. Yeah. I know if people say things about me,
it gets to me. About us also. So, like, it wasn't. Yeah.
Okay. And so then he said, hey, I am being harassed. I am being chased. There are a bunch of psychos out there. Then I think he said demons and people from hell and Satan and
pedophile protectors. Yeah.
Right. That you were working for them, and a lot of colorful terms. Yeah. And Corey Feldman likes all caps in his tweets. So you can tell. He's
Bobby Wolf actually wrote a song called All Caps about Corey Feldman. So.
Okay. So Bobby was kind of at the pointy end. You were sort of at the pointy end as well.
Yeah.
And that brings us to now. And Bobby essentially said, look, this is just too much garbage. Here, you can have my video interviews. Looks like you got rid of the video and just kept the audio. And
he actually gave me his channel too.
Oh, okay. So your channel is his channel then?
No, we actually had to put all his videos on private because Corey Feldman was having the woman that runs his website file fraudulent copy strikes on all of us. So we put everything on Bobby's channel private.
Oh, I could tell you how to get around that.
Well, we did, and they submitted fraudulent paperwork to YouTube saying they were going to take us to court. And
then you're saying, let's go. And you fundraise. You crowd raise. Well, never mind. Well, anyway, that's another
Sorry.
thing. Anyway, you can get them out there. I do know.
Okay.
But okay, so that brings us to now. Now, there's obviously some events that happened. Corey Feldman, if I recall, did come after you legally.
Yes. So there was a total of 5 of us that he filed restraining orders on. This was after he had a woman that runs his websites call CPS on me and make up all sorts of crazy lies and stuff. And of course it was all unfounded. And yes, I have the proof that Feldman had this woman do it because people that supported him that were in private messenger groups with his PR lady and stuff, they gave me screenshots of stuff. But anyways,
hold on. Can we take a second here? What was are you comfortable saying what the accusation was?
Yeah. So I had CPS come to my door and I let her in and I
Child Protective Services.
I know.
Yeah. So she says, somebody called and told us that you belong to a gang called the Wolf Pack and that you are harassing the actor Corey Feldman and that you are on all sorts of different kind of antidepressant medications, and sometimes that you just feel like taking that medication and, you know, ending your life. And I have 2 kids, and they were, I want to say 11 and 12 at the time, 12 or 13. And they said I had one kid that was like 8. You have an 8-year-old and you're online all day and you're not paying attention to them and not taking care of them. And so I was like, are you serious? And I said, okay, so this is the whole Wolfpack gang thing. And I told her exactly what I told you guys, why I got involved, because I didn't think anybody needs $10 million to name pedophiles in. I told her I've never been on any antidepressants in my life, that I don't take any. That's easily provable, you know, and I just said, you know, his fans and stuff have issues with me, of course. And so she's like, okay, so you're just being like vocal on social media about something you feel strongly and passionate about, you know, that it upset you that he wanted money to name pedophiles. And I said, yeah, exactly. And so they had to meet with my kids after they got off of school, and she sat and met with them. And, you know, I told her, I said, you know, because the syringe incident had happened at that point. So I'm like, you know, you can look it up. And so she did. And then that's the first time, that's when I first got in contact with Judy. Other people had been in contact with Judy, but I never was. Bobby was. And he told Bobby, I was on the phone with Bobby actually when CPS showed up at my house. So he had called Judy, and Judy wanted to talk to me. And Judy ended up talking to the CPS caseworker too. She talked to my husband, and of course everything was unfounded and I never saw them again. But that incident did happen in April 2018. They were just trying to silence me and scare me and get me off the internet. So that didn't work. So next thing he does is goes and files 5 temporary restraining orders. It was on Bobby, myself, the Shannon that I was telling you guys about, and then Jackie, which is one of his former employees. She's an angel. And
that's
then
Jezebel, the one that is Manson's agent.
Yeah.
Remember Marilyn Manson's agent, Spidey? That's Jackie.
And then, wait, did you say Marilyn? Okay. And
according to Corey Feldman, he said that she was Marilyn Manson's spy who infiltrated.
Oh, yeah. That's Corey and the Feldman. Okay.
Yeah.
And then another woman that worked for Feldman, and her name was Margot. And Jackie and Margot had both spoke out and did interviews with Bobby at that point, that if they're out there, you guys, everybody should listen to those. I actually might make them, put them on my channel again, actually, because it's really it's a lot and people need to hear it. But so then anyways, so they did that. Margot, so there was 5 of us. There was a court date scheduled for like, a month later or whenever it was. Margot was the only one that had been served. So she actually wanted the restraining placed on her because she wanted the protection from him also, because she's in LA. She's in the industry. Like, she's a great singer and artist. She's worked with Elton John. She's in the industry more than Feldman is, in my opinion. And so she was like, I don't care. I want the RO to be there. So she purposely didn't show up to the court date knowing that it would be granted. And it was. And of course, Feldman had his, what do you want to call him? The press there, I guess, there, of course, conveniently. And they asked him, and he's like, well, I got to get, these other 4 people. And so we were all waiting to be served. And Feldman knew my address. I had given it to Feld fan members of his. They had sent CPS to my house. I almost went as far as to tweet it out publicly because he didn't serve us, and there'd be another court date and it would get continued. And then another month came by and we weren't served, but yet it was continued. And I'm like, what the heck? And, I was calling lawyers to see if anybody would help me pro bono, and everyone's like, well, it's felt like, who's Feldman, like we're not going to get anything out of this or whatever. And then so Bobby was served. He lives in New Jersey. He was actually served. And I was like so frustrated because I'm like, I'm here. Like, and I was being on Twitter like, Feldman served me. Let's go. I want to do this court date with you and blah, 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 blah. And like the things that he wrote in that restraining order, you guys, was so insane. I actually might do a video about that again because I think it would be fun to go over that again. And so there was another court date. Well, I had a lawyer tell me, you don't need to get served. You can just go to the court date since they keep continuing it. That was the best news I had heard. So I was very vocal on Twitter saying, okay, Feldman, I'll be at court October 25th. I'll see you there. I had 170 something screenshots I printed of all the proof that I had to show him harassing me on Twitter, calling me a pedo protector, all those things, his people that work for him, the CPS, like I had everything ready to go and I was happy to get stuff on court record. So I was obnoxious about it, to be honest. Like people are like, Suzi, you okay? Like you're excited about this? And I'm like, yes. And so
sorry, Suzi, I'm gonna cut you off real quick. Eric, I wish Rob or Alita were here because do you know what the legal repercussions are of calling a government agency like CPS with false claims? Like, is that
Not
actually
much.
not much?
Not
That
much.
breaks my
sadly.
heart because, like, when you're using the system, first of all, I find it really
just
strange
happened.
that
It just happened to that umbrella guy. Literally last night, Camilla, one of Amber Heard, she works with Kat Tinbarge of NBC, got Child Protective Services to go see that umbrella guy, and that stains the reputation of you in an area, and it's absolutely it's despicable. And you see them doing it.
What I find silly is CPS gets a call where someone's claiming that Suzi takes antidepressants and is neglectful towards her children. Taking antidepressants does not mean being negligible towards your children, even if they could prove that she takes antidepressants, which they can't.
Right.
There's still a big gap there that CPS, if I was the one taking the call from CPS, I would say, what evidence do you have that she's neglectful towards her
Here's
children?
the problem, Spidey. Think of this is why it's so dirty. You can't screw with this. We're talking about kids here. You got to go out. And they know this shit. They know that they make that phone call. They can't just say, hey, you need to prove this before we go do something. And then what if something happens to a kid? No, hell no, dude. You've got to go. That's why.
A good point. And I guess the reason it's not actionable is because I might see something that I think is weird, and my hunch might be right, and I might end up saving a kid. But there's just got to be like to me in this case, it's blatantly obvious that the person had zero
malicious intent.
Yeah.
No, it was malicious intent. They had zero reason to believe that Suzi was actually neglectful towards her children.
Yeah.
So in this, you know what I mean? When they called whoever called CPS,
it's dirty.
They were trying to weaponize them to scare me and get me off the internet.
It's similar to swatting, Spidey.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing. Only swatting is just putting a sharper edge to it and saying that, that she would be a threat, a very current threat. And then all the police come and they come hard. And if she's confused, answers the door wrong, she might get shot or something because of a high pressure situation. This is all very similar. It's all right in that spectrum. And it's dirty. Now, swatting can get people busted, fortunately, but the CPS, because there's too many people that say, I don't know, the kid had weird bruises, and then it looked wrong, and then it turns out there was nothing.
There's a law in America that we often reference when it comes to body language and nonverbal behavior. I forget what it's called, Eric. You might know off the top of my head. I forget what it's called, but an officer is allowed to make an arrest or a search based on suspicious nonverbal activity, but they have to justify in court specifically what it is they saw. So I saw even if it's
probable cause, really, is what you're talking about.
Well, there's an actual name for that law to say they can arrest you if they don't see a gun, but in your activity they saw some suspicious looking around, and he was to himself, and he had his hands in his pockets, you can do that. But again, in the
They
courtroom,
can't arrest you off of that. They can't arrest you off that here. I don't know about Canada.
No, in America,
they
there's a law.
they can stop you. No, they can stop you.
Oh,
and they can talk to you.
They can
but
search
you.
you.
Can't
Right?
actually arrest. Right. That's a reasonable suspicion is enough for them to be able to say, "Hey, come here, kid. What are you doing? What's going on?"
Got it.
But
okay.
But not to do a full arrest. No, they've got to actually come up with something. They can't just say, "Yeah, he looks suspicious. Put the cuffs on and throw him in."
Okay, you're right. So whatever it is, they're allowed to search you. They're allowed to question you based on suspicious behavior, but they have to explain what that suspicious behavior was. I wonder if there would be a way to apply that, but I guess it's a slippery slope because sometimes it's just a hunch, So yeah,
sure.
it's awful.
Well, I mean, that's why, weed being legal has to destroy cops everywhere because that was the number one thing in the world. It's like, oh, I smell weed. Let's check the car. I mean, it'd be like, oh, it turns out there was no weed, but I know I smelled it.
Right.
I found this over here. But I guess to fast forward, so you went to court that day, and that turned out to be a good decision.
I ended up going to court. Yeah, he didn't show up. So, I went before there. Judge said, okay, he's not here. He hasn't called. His lawyer hasn't called. Dismissed. I sat back down in the galley, and he said, ma'am, you can leave. And I said, well, there's actually other restraining orders. My friend, yada, yada. He looked those up. He said, okay, those are dismissed also. And so, yeah, it got thrown out because he didn't show up. And it was like October 25th or 26th. And, he was posting that he was out partying that weekend for Halloween. So I guess that was more important than the court date. So.
All right. So I guess the danger wasn't there. And I just pulled up an article showing that it is on the internet how all the charges were dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
And we move on.
Eric, I found it. It's Terry v. Ohio. That's what the case is called. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Okay, so Terry v. Ohio is, and you guys can look this up, that is the case that because a police officer saw a guy, thought his behavior was suspicious, nonverbal behavior, frisked him and found a gun, and turns out that the guy had the intention of using that gun. And due to that, it is U.S. law that, but you're right, they're allowed to frisk or search based on suspicious nonverbal activity, but in the courtroom, they have to explain verbatim what that behavior was. I just wanted to clarify that. So I think it would make sense to apply that. Like for Child Protective Services, if you call them and let's say Suzi would go back and like counter sue or do something about that, the person would have to say, here are the reasons I reasonably believed that she was being neglectful to her children. But I guess there are outlying cases where, again, it's just a hunch. And it's such a weird, it's so hard to figure out how to handle that. I get, it's so confusing.
Yeah. It's ugly. And sadly, it's the same reason, Spidey, that, dare I say that there are people who have gone to prison for sexual assault who later it turns out didn't happen. Not much happens to the accuser. Occasionally something does, but usually no. And why? Because they want to make sure that anyone feels comfortable in reporting if they are hurt. So what do? It is a really, really ugly situation. And you don't want to, fall on the wrong side of it, obviously.
Right. It was just another way, just like with the restraining order, they were trying to scare me into, being like, oh no, I better get off the internet, better not talk about him anymore. Okay,
so now that all went away, and so did things quiet down for a while, or what is
that? There was a lot of women that came forward and spoke about what they went through. There was multiple sexual abuse allegations made against him and just horrible stuff. So, we did that and put that out there. And then he ended up coming out with the documentary, right? So no $10 million. He ended up getting like $350,000. I think from like the 3 GoFundMe's and whatever else the things were that he had. So he's making this documentary. He's spending his own money on it. The documentary is coming out. Well, he decides that the way he's going to release this documentary that's exposing all these Hollywood pedophiles is he's going to show it one time only, on his website that he created for this documentary. It's $20 for you to buy the secret code to access this on whatever day it was coming out. Let's say
it's a pay-per-view event.
Kind of, yeah. But
like
through like some website that he got, right? So it's Wednesday at 8 p.m., whatever day it was. This documentary is coming out. And we're like, oh, because we were always like, Feldman, tell your story, please. But to tell your story, you don't need to tell Corey Haim's story, who isn't here to say anything or whatever. And his story's been told, blah, blah, blah. So documentary's coming out that, right? I buy a ticket for it. And I'm like, I'm going to stream it privately, on YouTube, and we can all watch it together. I'll screen share. So he's premiering it, and he's doing an event somewhere in Hollywood where, he's got journalists and whatever there and whatever, red carpet event. But like I said, it was only going to be shown this one time. So we're sitting there waiting. It hits 8 p.m. We're going. Sites, nothing's working. We're like, what the heck? What's going on? So we're on social media, and he's, tweeting that they're having issues, this, that, and the other. And like 45 minutes to an hour pass. And then I see on Twitter, because, I'm searching under his name, that one of his Feld fan members, who ironically enough, she no longer supports him, and I'm actually friends with her, but at the time she supported him, and he had her in the documentary briefly. Like, I think she ended up being in there like a minute, but it was supposed to be, like this documentary was supposed to be about the abuse and stuff, but then he turned it into how the Wolfpack attacked him, and Judy, sent all these people to destroy him and stuff. Like, it turned into that too.
So the documentary was
celebrities.
Well, I'm sorry.
Did he name any celebrities in the documentary? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but he had already named them on Dr. Oz. There's already been the names had already been out there. It wasn't anything.
So he didn't add. To be clear, in this documentary, he didn't add any new names.
Nope, not one. Like when we had tweeted, like, this is who the 6 people are going to be that he's named, because he had Dr. Oz name these 3 here, and then he said this there, and that's what it was. So, but like I said, he turned half the documentary into being about us and Judy and all this nonsense.
And for the chat who's confused, Judy is Corey
Haim's mom,
his supposed best friend, who died in 2009, 2010.
Right.
And also in the movie, didn't he imply that Corey Haim died of a drug overdose?
He did, but he did not. He had no drugs in his system. He had pneumonia, and he had heart issues, but it was pneumonia. Okay, so we're waiting for this documentary to come out. So 45 minutes later, I see this clip from inside the theater that he has in Hollywood, and he's like, sorry, guys. And the guy comes over the speaker and says, like, whatever computer language is, like, I am not a computer savvy person. So the guy's like, oh, we got this, whatever. And then you hear Gina, which was a Speld fan member that was in the documentary. She goes, I know what happened. And so she says something and you can't hear her. And Corey goes, yeah, what'd you say, Gina? And he brings her over the microphone and she's like, I knew this was going to happen. The Wolfpack, they hacked the movie. They hacked this. They did this. They said they were going to, it's Suzi and Shannon. And I'm like, what is even happening right now? And like, literally anybody that knows me on YouTube or whatever knows like how ridiculous I am, because I just like, I'm not tech savvy at all. Like, I'm like, what the heck? And so there was like other live streamers that I had never seen that had like big platforms. They were streaming about like him not being able to show this documentary and stuff. And they're like, who's this? So I'm like, it was bananas. So he ended up not even being able to show it that night because the site crashed or whatever. So, and like, I wanted to see it, like we were all ready to watch it. So then the next day at like around, someone had asked me to do an interview that because of this thing that said I hacked this movie. So I had that interview set up for the next day at 3. And then he got the website working at like 2 p.m. the next day. So he's like, okay, we're going to show it. We'll show it for 24 hours because of, whatever issue happened. And there was like some hacker group the next morning that claimed that they did it. And I don't think they did. I really just think the site crashed and couldn't handle that kind of thing. But that's, I don't know. So watched a documentary. Still to this day, because that day I was out running errands and my friend was showing it and I'm listening to it. I haven't even watched it from start to finish. I didn't see the last 20 minutes of it. I listened to it. It was, exactly like, it was just ridiculous. And so we're like, okay, great. Your documentary's done. Like, can you be done now? Can you stop using the Haim name and all this nonsense? And so, I had said all along, like, I don't like the guy. I want him to do movies. I want him to do his music, do whatever, make money his own, but stop scamming fans. So, the people that donated to the $300,000, you donated certain amounts, you were supposed to get like a signed movie or a book or this. And so many people didn't get their stuff. Like that was a whole nother separate issue. I was like, as long as he's not scamming his fans and trashing the Haim name, then I don't have anything really, and then abusing women, obviously, I don't have anything to say about the guy. So like I, kind of let up, and then it was just like he would be quiet, but then he'd have some sort of interview where he would bring up all the stuff again. And, I lost times of how many times he called me and, other friends that were heavily involved in this, pedophile protectors. Like, you have a platform of over 200,000 people, Corey, and you're saying this and putting our Twitter handle on there. And, anybody that tweeted at him, it was always the Wolfpack us tied to us. And so like things would pop up and, I would address things here and there. There was like months and months that went by that I never did a video about him. And, I pay very little attention to him now. Obviously, I still have friends that I met through all this, and I get sent stuff from time to time. And, I'll do a video here and there and discuss things. And like when he was blaming Manson, I'm like, oh gosh, here we go again. It's always somebody else's fault for anything that happens to this guy. And so that's just where I'm at today. I used to cover him a lot, for a while there. And now I just do it if I feel like it's something that, either should be discussed or, if he's attacking myself or one of my friends or like playing the blame game or any of that, then yeah, I'll discuss him here and there and stuff like that. I just did an interview. I was doing a stream about him like a month or two ago where, I can't even remember what the topic was going to be. And one of the girls that the first one I told you, Mara Moon, that never did an interview with Bobby or I sent the link and said, hey, I'm doing this stream later. And she's like, oh, I'll come on there. And she came on there and actually shared her story for the first time. So that was, really good for her to get her story out and hear that, hear her tell it herself. And, just things like that I still, pay attention to him a little bit here and there. And like when he started this new tour now with his new band, I was extremely happy to hear that, if nothing came out of these last 5 years, besides him not getting as many donations as he probably would have had we not been doing what we're doing and, giving these girls voices and all that. Like one thing that I'm glad that came out of this is he didn't put another band together with young females who don't know who he is, don't know what they're getting into. He literally would move them in and they weren't allowed to leave his house and went through all the horrible things they went through. He didn't do that this time. So I was very thankful that at least that wasn't happening again with his new band, So I said, go do your tour, buddy. Best of luck.
So I guess this leaves us to where we'll have to see what happens. Never know. He might have gotten his attention. I do hope to hear from some of the others. Unfortunately, I've talked with Jezebel, and Judy has been in the chat actually before with Spidey even. And I'm going to read a couple super chats as we wrap up. The illustrious Scott Cardinal here
Can I just say one quick thing that I really want to
Sure.
say that um, Corey Feldman, he's not like everybody, and I get it. Like, people know that he was abused in Hollywood, and I've never said that he wasn't abused or any of that, or said, don't believe his stories about that. I believe the kid had a rough childhood, not only with the pedophiles in Hollywood, but also with his parents. But that, like I said earlier, it doesn't give you a pass in life to then become an abuser yourself, or to do wrongdoings, or expect that the world owes you something in return, to where you feel you can profit over telling somebody else's abuse story that may not even be true. You have no proof of. So I've always encouraged, and so has everybody that's worked with me in the last 5 years doing all this, please do your own research on him. Don't believe what I've sat here and said for the last hour and a half. Look it up. The videos that I talked about earlier on Bobby's channel are out there. They're on other channels. They can be found. Listen to those women's story. Do your research, and draw your own opinions and your conclusions. I've always encouraged people to please do their own research. So I just wanted to say that.
Perfectly fair.
I think that's one of the most important things you've said, Suzi, because to me personally, in my experience, when people underplay their own story and say, go look it up, it indicates a belief, a fundamental belief in their position, because, Suzi, Eric, I hope it's okay if I analyze Suzi a little. That
sure, she'll love it.
She's okay with saying, like, go out and do your own research, because you will come to the same conclusion as me. And it's rare that, it happens, but it's rare that we do that if we're uncertain about what's out there, because we really say, no, you have to listen to me. Listen to me, because what I'm telling you is the truth. What they're telling you out there isn't. Suzi seems confident that if anybody goes out there and looks this up, they'll come to the same conclusion as her. So, Suzi, I really appreciate that you said that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And a lot of he had the Feld fan members that supported him, through thick and thin for those first 2-3 years. I think he has one or two of the original people left, because they saw it themselves too over the years, so please do your own research.
Wow.
Love it.
And Scott, generous guy. Maybe this is like Joaquin Phoenix's I'm Still Here hoax from a few years ago. Is a mockumentary. How do you know about that? Seems possible. I think he's talking about the performance. That performance is so bad it couldn't even be a mock.
Hey, we skipped his first question. It was an important question.
What?
Scott's first question. I never addressed it. His first super chat. Did you get rid of
Magic
it?
Castle. Yeah, it's out of the way.
It's incredible. Honestly, if you're ever in LA and you have a chance, you have to know a member to get in. But in Hollywood, the Magic Castle, it's incredible. It's like Hogwarts. Like you can go there like 10 times, and there's little nooks and magical corners that you'll never discover. It's incredible. Yeah, love it. Okay,
awesome. Tish in Tennessee, met him in 1989 when a ride was open at Opryland. I'm honestly not sure he knew where he was. He was nice though. Okay. 89, he was still barely an adult. Or no, he was an adult now, but a young adult. A lot of us are lost. Why are we talking about Feldman? Is something currently going on in any official way? Is there a reason he's coming up again? Very quickly, he came up again because he brought himself up again a few weeks ago by talking about Manson and accusing Manson of bad things like all the other women did, essentially. And so I started to look into him, saw the Today Show performance. We did a light treatment of it. I got a ton of criticism, and I said, okay, well, you know what? There's a lot more about this guy, and why don't we just bring somebody on to talk about it? So that's what this is about. And next week, we'll probably be back to the our normal scheduled programming with Dan Cleary. Hopefully Spidey's up for it, but Spidey's got a break on the body language and get to hang out, just have a good time. Because you know what? I'll use any excuse to hang out with my friend on a Thursday because I don't get to talk to him the rest of the time. So if I could trap him, I at least know that I have this time with my friend. And that's really what it's about. So everybody, I deeply appreciate this. And Suzi, thank you so much for sharing. And hope to see everybody next week with Spidey and hopefully Rob and Alita.